There was a time when marriage meant standing beside each other, no matter what. Through the hard years, through the embarrassing moments, through the times when everything went wrong on live television in front of a studio full of strangers. But what happened to Diana Callaway on a Tuesday afternoon taping of Family Feud in the fall of 2023 would shake everyone in that room to their core, and then remind them of something they had almost forgotten. When her husband Marcus walked off the stage mid-game, turned his back on his family, and disappeared behind the studio doors, everyone held their breath. The audience went silent. The production crew froze. Steve Harvey stood at center stage with a look on his face that nobody in 20 years of television had ever seen before. And then Diana Callaway did something that nobody expected. Something that left 200 people in tears. Something that reminded every single person watching at home exactly why some women are built differently. This is a story about dignity, about what it means to hold your head high when the person who was supposed to be by your side chooses to walk away, and about the moment Steve Harvey stopped being a host and became something much more important. Diana Callaway was 52 years old, and she had been doing the quiet, invisible work of holding a family together for most of her adult life. She grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the second of four kids raised by a mother who worked double shifts at a textile factory and a father who repaired small engines out of a garage attached to the house. Nobody in her family had money, but they had something better. They had pride in the work, pride in showing up, and pride in never letting anyone see you fall apart in public. Her mother used to say it to all four of them before school every morning. "You represent this family wherever you go, so you go well." Diana had taken those words seriously her whole life. She went to community college on a partial scholarship, got a degree in early childhood education, and spent the next 26 years teaching kindergarten at Riverside Elementary. In suburban Atlanta, she was the kind of teacher whose former students came back to visit years later. The kind who remembered every kid's name, every nervous parent, every small victory. She married Marcus Callaway when she was 27. He was charming back then, a broad-shouldered man with a big laugh who worked in logistics management and talked about their future like it was already mapped out beautifully. They had two kids, Janelle, who was now 22 and in her second year of nursing school, and Dion, 19, who was studying mechanical engineering at Georgia Tech. The Callaway family looked good from the outside. A nice house in Smyrna, two cars in the driveway, kids doing well in school. But Diana knew the truth that most families keep behind closed doors. The last several years with Marcus had been hard. He had grown restless, impatient, and easily embarrassed. He didn't like being wrong in public. He didn't like looking less than perfect. He snapped at small things. A wrong turn on the highway, a slow waiter at a restaurant, a comment he felt undermined him in front of other people. It was Janelle who had submitted the family application to Family Feud 6 months earlier, almost as a joke, filling out the form on a lazy Sunday afternoon, while Diana and Dion laughed and added ridiculous answers to the "why should." "Your family be on the show section?" Marcus had been half watching football in the other room and had shrugged when they told him. "Sure, fine, we'll never actually get picked." But they did get picked. And now here they were, Diana, Marcus, Janelle, Dion, and Diana's younger sister Carol, who had driven up from Birmingham specifically for the taping, standing in the bright lights of the Family Feud studio in Atlanta, wearing coordinated blue and gold outfits that Diana had spent 3 weekends shopping for. She had wanted this day to be something good, something they could all laugh about later, a memory. She had no idea it was about to become one, just not the kind she had planned. The Callaway family was matched against the Reyes family from Houston, a loud, energetic group of 5 cousins ranging in age from 24 to 60, all of whom seemed to genuinely love being there. They high-fived after every answer, good or bad. They laughed when they got a strike. Their energy filled the room. The Callaways were more reserved. Janelle smiled. Dion bounced on his heels. Carol kept whispering encouraging things in Diana's ear. Marcus stood at the end of the line with his arms crossed, his jaw set, already watching the Reyes family like they were a problem to be solved. The game started well enough. Steve Harvey, as always, brought his warmth to every exchange, teasing the families, building the crowd up, making everyone feel like they belonged on that stage. He asked Marcus the opening face-off question. "Name something a doctor tells you to do more of." Marcus said exercise with total confidence. The board lit up. Number 2 answer. 24 points. Not the top answer, but solid. The family cheered. Marcus barely smiled. The Callaways won the face-off and began their round. Things moved along well at first. Diana got a good answer. Janelle got a good answer. Dion delivered with sleep, and the board rewarded him. But then Marcus stepped up for his turn, and the dynamic shifted. Steve leaned in with his classic playful smirk. Marcus, the survey says name a place where you wait in line longer than you expected. Marcus thought for a moment and said with absolute certainty, the bank. The buzzer sounded. Strike one. The audience let out a collective groan of sympathy, the kind that happens 100 times on Family Feud and never means anything. But Marcus's expression changed immediately. His jaw tightened. He looked at the board like it had personally insulted him. Steve moved on smoothly, as he always does. The next few rounds passed without incident, though the Callaways ultimately lost that round and gave control back to the Reyes family. The Reyes family scored well. The lead changed hands. The studio was having fun. And then came the moment that changed everything. In the second game, the Callaways were back in control. The score was close. Steve asked a question that required a family conference, one of those moments where the whole family huddles up and picks. The best answer together, Diana suggested one answer quietly. Janelle agreed with her. Dion nodded, but Marcus shook his head and pushed for something different. It's definitely vacation, he said, cutting Diana off mid-sentence. Trust me. Diana looked at him gently. Marcus, I really think they said weekend. The survey usually goes more specific. Diana. His voice was flat, clipped, the kind of tone that had a whole history behind. They went with vacation. It was a strike. The audience made their sympathetic noise. Steve handled it with his usual grace, not making a big deal of it. But Marcus was already done. He stepped back from the podium. He turned slightly away from the rest of the family. And then, without a word, without looking at Diana, without any warning at all, he walked off the stage. Not to the side, not to get a drink of water. He walked in the direction of the backstage area, and he kept going until he was gone from sight. The audience did not know exactly what to make of it at first. There was a beat of confused silence. A few people exchanged glances. A producer's voice could be heard somewhere off camera. Steve Harvey stood at center stage, and for just a moment, just one moment, his professional mask slipped, and what was underneath it was something that looked a lot like disbelief. Janelle's face fell. Dion looked at the floor. Carol, who had driven 3 hours from Birmingham for this, put her hand over her mouth. And Diana Calloway stood completely still, back straight, chin level, eyes full. She did not run after him. She did not cry. She did not apologize to the audience. She just stood there, composed and steady, like a woman who had been through much harder things than this and had come out the other side still standing. Steve Harvey has a gift. After 20-plus years in television stand-up comedy, talk shows, game shows, radio, he knows how to read a room better than almost anyone alive. He knows when something real is happening. He knows when the moment on the stage is no longer about a game. This was one of those moments. He walked over to Diana slowly, without rushing, without drawing extra attention to the absence at the other end of the family line. He stopped in front of her and lowered his voice just slightly, not enough to exclude the audience, but enough to make the moment feel personal. Diana. He said her name like a question and an affirmation at the same time. You okay? Diana looked at him, and then she did something unexpected. She smiled. Not a polished, everything's fine television smile. A real one, small, a little tired around the edges, but absolutely genuine. I'm good, Mr. Harvey, she said. I've been okay before. I'll be okay now. The audience exhaled. Steve Harvey did not look away from her. You sure about that? He asked. I'm sure, she said. Can we keep playing? My kids are still here. The audience responded before Steve even had a chance to. The applause was immediate and genuine, not the polished, cue card kind that game show audiences sometimes give, but the spontaneous, emotional kind that fills a room because people cannot help themselves. Several people were already crying. Steve Harvey stepped back and let it wash over the room. Then he turned to the audience and to the cameras, and he said something quietly that would be clipped and shared thousands of times in the weeks that followed. Ladies and gentlemen, that woman right there, that is what dignity looks like. The Callaways, Diana, Janelle, Dion, and Carol played on, and something shifted in the energy of the room. The audience was no longer watching a game show. They were watching four people refuse to let someone else's exit become their ending. Janelle stepped up to the podium and got an answer that scored high. She pumped her fist and grabbed her mother's hand. Dion, who had been quiet and embarrassed just minutes earlier, got the next answer and let out a whoop that made the whole audience laugh and cheer along with him. Carol, who had never been on television in her life and had spent the pre-show terrified, delivered a confident answer that earned her a double high five from Steve Harvey himself. And Diana. Diana stood in the middle of all of it, an anchor for her family, calm and warm and unshakable. When it was her turn, she stepped up, thought for exactly 3 seconds, and gave the number one answer. The board lit up. The audience erupted. The Callaways won the round. As the family hugged each other and the crowd cheered, Steve Harvey pulled Diana aside for a moment. The cameras caught it, though the exchange was quiet enough that it did not fully register on the main audio until later. When the production team reviewed the footage, "I want to ask you something," Steve said, "and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But I have to ask." Diana nodded. "How do you do that?" he asked. "How do you just stand there like that after what just happened?" Diana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My mother used to tell us before school every morning. She'd say, 'You represent this family wherever you go, so you go well.' I didn't go well for his sake. I went well for theirs." She gestured at Janelle and Dion. "Those two are watching everything I do. They always have been. I wasn't going to let them see me fall apart." Steve Harvey looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "That," he said, "is the best answer anyone has ever given on this stage. And I don't care what the survey says." The Callaways made it to fast money. Janelle went first. She was nervous. Her hands were shaking slightly as she stood at the podium. But she answered all 5 questions with speed and clarity, scoring 147 points. Strong. More than enough to give Diana a real chance. Diana stepped up. The studio had the particular kind of quiet that only comes when an audience is truly holding its breath. Steve Harvey read the rules, gave her the setup, and then with real warmth in his eyes said, "Diana, you need 53 points. You've already shown everybody in this room who you are. Now go show them what you know." Diana put her hands flat on the podium, took one breath, and then she answered. "Question 1, number 2 answer. Question 2, number 1 answer. Question 3, number 1 answer." The audience noise was building with each reveal, the kind of escalating excitement that only a live studio crowd can produce. Question 4, number 2 answer. The total was climbing. And then question 5, the last one, and the board flipped. Number 1 answer. The Callaways had won $20,000. Janelle screamed. Dion lifted his mother off the ground. Carol burst into full, open, unashamed sobs. And Diana, composed, steady Diana, finally let the tears come not from sadness, not from relief, from something that is harder to name. The particular joy of watching your children celebrate beside you. The feeling of having held the line when everything in you wanted to collapse. The knowledge that you had shown your kids something they would carry for the rest of their lives. Steve Harvey was crying too. He did not try to hide it. He walked over, wrapped Diana in a hug, and spoke into the microphone for the room to hear. $20,000, he said. But that's not what you won today. What you won today, you can't put a number on it. The audience gave them a standing ovation that lasted nearly 3 full minutes. It was, by the account of everyone who was there, the longest spontaneous standing ovation in Family Feud studio history. Backstage, something else was happening. Marcus Callaway had not, as some initially assumed, simply left the building. He had gone to the green room, sat down, and spent the entirety of his family's winning round watching it on a monitor. When production staff found him later, he was sitting quietly with his elbows on his knees and his face in his hands. He did not come back onto the stage. He did not interrupt the moment. Whatever was happening inside him, he kept it there, and for the first time in a long time, that was probably the right call. When the episode aired 6 weeks later, the response was unlike anything the Family Feud production team had seen in recent memory. The clip of Marcus walking off went viral, yes, but that was not what people kept sharing. What people kept sharing was Diana standing still, her back straight, her chin up, her eyes forward. 3 seconds of television that said more than most people say in an hour, and they kept sharing the moment when Steve Harvey said it. "That woman right there, that is what dignity looks like." Within 48 hours of the episode airing, Diana's name was trending. Teachers' associations posted about her. Women's advocacy groups shared her story. Pastors used the clip in sermons. A high school in Memphis showed the segment in an assembly about emotional resilience and self-worth. Janelle, who was in her 2nd year of nursing school at the time the episode aired, posted a short message on her personal page that got more traction than anything she'd ever written. "My mom taught me how to be strong before I knew what strong meant. Now the whole world got to see what I've always known." It was shared over 400,000 times. Diana was invited onto 2 national morning programs in the weeks that followed. She said the same thing on both of them in her calm, direct way. I don't think of myself as doing anything remarkable. I think of myself as doing what my mother taught me. You show up, you take care of your children, you go well. She was asked, carefully and respectfully, about Marcus. She paused. Then she said, "That's a private matter, and I'm going to keep it that way. What I will say is that every person in every family is dealing with something the camera doesn't see. I don't think anger or embarrassment serves anyone well. Not me, not him, not my kids. I just know what I'm responsible for." Both interviewers let that answer sit without pushing further. It did not need anything added to it. Steve Harvey, for his part, spoke about the Callaway episode twice in the months that followed, once on his own podcast and once in a long interview with a national publication. He said that in over 2 decades in television, he had seen thousands of families on stage, and that most of the moments he remembered were the funny ones, the shocking ones, the ones that made everybody laugh. But every once in a while, he said, somebody walks in there and shows you something that you needed to see. Diana Callaway didn't come on Family Feud to teach anybody anything. She just came to play a game with her family. But what she gave everybody who saw that episode, that was a lesson about what grace looks like under pressure, about what it means to be the steady one, about what you owe your children even when someone else is letting them down. He paused. Then he added, "I've seen a lot of people win money on that show. I've never seen somebody win the way she won." 3 months after the episode aired, Janelle Callaway graduated from her first clinical rotation with honors. Dion made Dean's List at Georgia Tech, and Diana Callaway returned to her classroom at Riverside Elementary. To her 22 kindergartners, to the small morning rituals and the finger paint handprints and the tiny voices that had been calling her name for 26 years. On the first day back, one of her students, a 5-year-old named Marcus, coincidentally handed her a drawing he had made over the weekend. It was a picture of a woman in a blue dress, standing very straight with a big yellow sun behind her. "Who is this?" Diana asked him. "That's a strong lady," he said simply, and went back to his seat. Diana set the drawing on her desk. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she went to work. Because that is what she had always done. That is what her mother taught her. You represent this family wherever you go. So you go, well,